Friday the 13th, Part 2, of course, is the follow up, the continuation of the classic film Friday the 13th that became a pretty big hit, a huge hit, actually, a surprise hit for Paramount Studios. And of course, a lot of people will say that this is one of the better entries in the series, and I would agree with that. This is actually definitely among my personal favorites. I like it quite a bit, and it came very quickly after the original film, a mere year after it was released. I mean, we're not talking Avatar level sequels here. We're talking, cheap slashers that can be made, for minimal amount of money, and they can make quite a bit of profit at the box office. So strike when the iron's hot with these series, as we learn time and time again with horror series, and definitely the Friday the 13th series. It is a prime example of this. It does follow the story. We see the survivor of the first film kind of dealing with the trauma after the murders at Camp Crystal Lake, at Camp Blood, right? And she's having these terrible dreams because in the early 80s, at least, VCRs weren't that cheap. So if you're going to see a sequel, you get a little bit of a recap through a dream sequence and all that. But then, oops, she's killed. She's killed off. So our heroine from the first film, she's done for. So we kind of start fresh. This is actually 5 years after Pamela Voorhees went on her murder spree because, of course, of Jason drowning all those years ago, and she blames all the counselors, and she's dead. And we can assume that the appearance of Jason, the young Jason, at the end of the first film, coming out of the water and that iconic and memorable scene, was just a hallucination of some kind, right? Because in this film, Jason, for the first time in the series, he's the killer, as he would be for pretty much every other movie, except for the fifth one. But whatever. Um, I do think that part two, in a lot of ways, it is an improvement over the first film. Though of course it follows the general same formula. I mean, these aren't complicated movies, but basically we have a bunch of counselors preparing for camp and getting killed, and yeah, that's it. So I mean, it's not a complicated formula, but I think it is in the little details that this movie gets a lot right. And I think in the characters, I mean, we compared to the first film, though of course, I mean, we get Kevin Bacon in the first film. That's kind of cool. We do get more of a variety of characters, and in fact, more uh, characters to add to the kill count, I guess, and quite a few memorable characters here and there. I mean, nothing nothing too elaborate, but we got the guy in the wheelchair. We got the Mickey Mouse girl with the impossibly tight short shorts. We got the redheaded skinny nerd guy, and all that. All that's great. Oh, and of course, everyone's favorite vagrant, Crazy Ralph, is back, still trying to warn those kids of the death curse. But actually, they do end up, they kill him, which was a terrible, terrible waste. Rest in peace, Ralph. And maybe what makes this movie stand out is the final girl, the staple of these movies, right? Is always that final girl, Ginny in this one. I think she stands out quite a bit, and she might be the largest contributing factor to what makes this movie so enjoyable. And of course, she's not. She doesn't follow like the exact rules or whatever they may actually be. Kind of the unwritten rules is, I guess, really like our buddy Randy from Scream kind of taught us of what makes a good final girl. Like, don't drink, don't smoke, don't have sex, stuff like that. Here, she doesn't quite follow those rules. I mean, we do see her later on in the film. She's at the bar having a few drinks, things like that. She doesn't have sex, but it's more for different reasons. Like, I mean, there's kind of a good gag in the movie where the leader of the camp is her boyfriend. They're together the first night there, and she said, "Wait, I have to tell you something." And it, cuts to the next scene, and we see the next morning she's waking up alone. He had left, and on her window is written "Beware of bears" in lipstick, because in a prior scene he was warning girls of keeping clean during their menstrual cycle. So some bodily function humor there, very good. But maybe what makes you stand out is that as we learn in some exposition that she's studying child psychology. So we have this killer, Jason, who growing up kind of just with his mother, and then after her death, alone, uh, with the mind of a child. So she's really the only kind of character in these types of movies that has at least this kind of semi psychological understanding of the woodsman Jason, you know? And she's able to use certain tricks to get him to, I don't know, at least to distract him, to trick him a little bit. Like, of course, we see that he has the mother's head in a shrine, a very cool kind of imagery used in this film with, the decaying, rotting, decapitated head of Pamela Voorhees amidst all these candles in his little shack in the woods. Very good, and her sweater as well. But she puts on the sweater in the final act of the film, and is able to convince him, at least momentarily, that she is his mother. You're doing a very good job, Jason. Mommy's very proud of you, but you can stop now. Stuff like that. So it's kind of a good edge. I mean, there's a good adversarial relationship, I guess, in a way. I guess the only way they topped it was with like the psychic girl, the telekinetic girl in the seventh one, Jason versus Carrie. So I thought a very worthy final girl for this race. So maybe that's part of the reason why this stands out a bit. But of course, there are good kills. In a similar way to the first film, they're kind of these point of view kills where we see, you know, only the hands of the killer, or kind of off screen, or the point of view of the camera. Or we don't quite see Jason in the traditional sense of things, especially what we're kind of used to. We're of course used to Jason, the big, tall, lumbering, unstoppable killer with the hockey mask, right? But he does not have the iconic mask in this film. In fact, he has the sack with a hole for an eye, much very similar to the killer in the town that dreaded sundown, an homage, if you will, or maybe just a straight ripoff. But very interesting that this one, it is regarded as one of the better entries, though it doesn't have that iconic accoutrement that we're all so used to, that is thought to be like, the quintessential visage of Jason, of what we all kind of picture in our heads when we think of Jason from Friday the 13th. So that's kind of an interesting thing. But the movie, it works. It works in a way that, while they didn't maybe quite have the formula that we're all used to down to a T, it is kind of an interesting thing seeing how it evolves in a certain way, and how they were able to take kind of just this one-off idea of Jason from the first film, and in realizing that the first film was such a success and we need another one, but hey, we killed the main killer in the movie. How are we going to continue this? Well, of course, we have that Jason guy. Let's have him be grown up and be the killer, even though maybe it doesn't quite make sense in a timeline kind of fashion. But who cares? We have Jason, and he's doing the killing. So I thought they did a very good job in that respect. Sean S. Cunningham was the director of the first film. I think he stayed on as a producer on this one, but in the director's chair we have Steve Miner, who I think in setting the tone for this film, I think he did a good job because like there's just a slight bit of humor to it. It's not too over the top with the humor like some of the sequels would kind of display later on, but there's a few things, you know, like there's uh, the interactions between the kids is a little bit more humorous this time around, and certain kind of visual tricks. Like we'll see like the little doggy Muffin uh, running up to Jason, and then the next shot is like hot dogs grilling on the barbecue. So kind of visual humor there. So it has a good sense of humor, and of course he'd go on to direct some more humorous types of horror films. Like right after this, I think he did House, which was definitely more of a kind of a manic comedy horror film, which is kind of a I don't know, bringing the slasher sensibility to a ghost story kind of worked really well. And there's nothing really like too over the top with this movie. It's not like, I mean, maybe for the time people may have thought this is like a wall to wall bloody exploitation kind of grindhouse kind of thing, but I mean it's by today's standards it's kind of tame. But there are some good kills. I mean, the harpoon through the two lovers on the bed kill was really good, and the wheelchair fella getting the machete in the head and just tumbling down the stairs and then freeze frame. It was really good, really good. So I mean, there's just a lot to enjoy about this movie. If you like these kinds of movies, I think this is just kind of a prime example of not just the genre, but of this particular era of the genre, which I don't know. I long for more and more with each passing year. Can you believe it? The year right now, as I'm recording this, is 2019. It's been 10 years since we've had a Friday the 13th movie. That's insane. We really need some more. I mean, this was the second one. It was made a year after. They'd be really consistent with making them all throughout the 80s. But now we're in the dark ages, so I guess all we can really do is just marathon these and remember the good times and hope for more to come, because Jason's never really dead. He's just resting. He's still out there. So, yeah, Friday the 13th. One of the better Friday the 13th movies, I think, and I think a lot of people agree with that. Very entertaining movie, a great slasher. So, if by any chance you haven't seen it, check it out if you don't mind these spoilers. So, thank you very much for watching. This is 31 Days of Horror. Still doing some horror movie reviews. Stay tuned for more as the month is coming to a close, as we're heading towards Halloween. And thank you very much for watching. And until next time, I'll see you later.